This podcast is a proud member of the Unidentified Network.
Police in Las Vegas found themselves in the middle of a UFO mystery last month after
To us. Big eyes, they have big eyes.
911, what are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Did you see what it was? Was it a person or an animal? Or?
One of my partners said they saw something fall out of the sky too, so that's why I'm kind of curious.
What sign? I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yeah, I'm looking right at him.
Okay, hang on.
He's right.
Is he in your yard, sir?
Yeah, good. He's big.
Okay, what's he doing in your yard?
Mythical Legends Podcast with your host Daniel Barnett.
And we're live here at the Mythical Legends Podcast. I think, Chris, this is the latest we've ever done a podcast. I think.
Yeah, definitely for me. Yeah.
So, guys, welcome to another Mythical Legends podcast. And today we have an excellent podcast lined up for you. We have our normal Mythical Legends co-host, Chris Alsford, a very, very dear friend of mine and a very, very good worker within the UK BRT. So, how are you, Chris?
All very good, yes. But nobody's interested in me. Come on.
So, we have an amazing guest that we are going to bring on today for our interview. And he's had amazing sighting that most of you probably would have heard of in different TV programs that might give you a bit of a clue. But let's bring this guy on and have an amazing podcast. Please, I'm proudly present Mel Skahan.
Hi, Daniel. Hi, Chris. And
Hi, Mel.
hello, everybody. And I'd like to give you a hand because you are like one out of 1 million that have gotten my name correct on the first go around.
How are you, Mel?
Oh, I'm doing fine. Just a beautiful day over here in the Pacific Northwest. And thank you for doing this as late as you guys are over there.
You are more than welcome. So I'm going to pass straight over to Chris to kind of start the interview.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Mel. Thank you for being with us.
Hello, Chris.
I just wanted to, before we get into all the exciting stuff, wanted to get a bit of background for people. Tell us where you are.
I'm located. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, please. Yeah.
Okay, I'm located in Seattle, Washington, in the Pacific Northwest, and been here for about 5 years now.
Oh, right. It's not home for you.
No, I used to live over in Central Washington, in the Yakima, Washington area, on the Yakima Reservation, where I'm originally from. I'm an enrolled member, Native American with the Yakima Nation.
Okay. That was going to be my next question, so we could have an understanding of what your for us in the UK. There's a lot of tribal names, but the regions they cover, this sort of thing, it's all kind of new for us. So Yakima.
Yeah, Yakima is a 1.2 million acres big, and it was handed over to us or given to us through the U.S. government and in 1855 with the treaty signed with the United States, and we're about 15,000 members strong.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's amazing.
So right there in the mountains, I can see it there. Yeah.
It's a lot of it's divided up between agriculture and in the lowlands, and then once you climb in elevation, our highest point is right around 11,000 feet. We have Mount Adams that is located on the western border of the reservation, and then to the northwest is the Goat Rocks. And when the treaty was first signed, our elders who signed the treaty wanted to make sure that we had good flowable water from the glaciers and all, and so that's the boundaries of the reservation.
Ah,
Wow.
ah,
Wow.
cool.
Amazing. And I think for now obviously we'll have everyone from over in America on here tonight, who will come and go. But for everyone in the UK who will probably watch this on record, I think it's very, very interesting to hear about kind of some of the American tribes, and because we as Bigfoot researchers, I'll say we don't really hear about kind of all that. We know that it's there, but it's really, really interesting to hear about kind of the history and kind of all the things going on over there. Do you think that's right, Chris?
Definitely, yeah. It is something that a lot of people here have an interest in, but very limited knowledge. I know when I was working over there, I met people from the Blackfoot tribe, which I'm assuming must be a little bit further north from you.
East.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, wow. So, I will take on the next question then, Mel, and I'll go. Now, obviously, I really want to get into your sighting in a minute, but we'll go with. Could you tell us about your how your cryptid journey started?
It started when at a very young age. We as kids are always told stories, different types of stories. My great grandfather and my great grandfather and my great great grandmother were all good um, storytellers of the land and how the land was created, and whether it was true or not, but they sure could tell me about looking at a feature on the landscape on a mountain or hillside, and they would tell us how that was formed. And so that's how the traditions and stuff are passed down and how everything came about throughout our lands. And so I'm very grateful that I got that education from them. And also, when we would go into the woods with them, they would always point out a lot of things to us. Uh, the foods that we would eat, collect, and also tell us about the animals. And then eventually we got around to Bigfoot. And at first, when we were told the stories of Bigfoot, then you're 6 years age and up, and you're like, monsters don't exist, and that's what we always thought they were, was just monsters that were made up, like you see in books like Godzilla, King Kong, and all that. And then you realize when you first have your own knowledgeable encounters that these aren't monsters, that these are actual people that continue to live as with no electricity, no automobiles, no, just walking and roaming the lands, and then living as we all did at one point, before all this luxury items that we have today.
Wow, wow, that's an amazing entrance into kind of the Bigfoot and cryptid world, I'll say, Mel. And it kind of then leads me on to my next question, let's say, which is kind of on to more about your sighting. Is I take it your tribe or your tribe where you are has some Bigfoot history and Bigfoot sightings. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, eventually, I did find out the stories that they did tell us as kids were actually um, rules that we needed to follow in order to maintain our relationship with not just the big people, but with everything, the land, the animals, the weather. I mean, everything, to respect all of that. And so getting into this, the first time anything had happened to me, I just didn't understand it. I mean, I was told the stories, but you're taught how to drive a car, but when you're out on your own driving for the first time alone, you're aware, you're all over the place, And it's the same thing getting into this. It's all over the place until you start settling down over the years, and then begin to take that knowledge of the stories that you collect, the evidence, the people that you meet.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, wow. And say, what's it like being part of a tribe? As in, kind of what kind of rules do you have to follow within the Bigfoot world?
Well, you know, it's all about the respect that you learn from your elders. And then I had the ultimate job. I've been a forester for all my life, for 37, 38 years. So I had the perfect job to be amongst walking around them within their world for that long. And it's taken me this long time to really understand them as a people. And then I'm still collecting the stories. I'm still learning and evolving myself. But to where I'm at now, I was taught lessons not by people but by them on how to carry myself when I go out into the woods now.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
people think that you need to go to the woods to have these experiences, and you don't. You can go to the outer edge of a city that is on the border of either an agricultural land or a forested area, and they will visit you. And I'm still learning this of the travel routes, of how far they will go in order to still collect the foods that we've encroached on their lands, built houses, built highways, built roads, and they're still trying to maneuver themselves around to be not detected.
Wow. Wow, that's awesome. I'll say
Yeah.
that yeah, yeah, and say it's really interesting because obviously here in the UK we don't have what you guys have in the US, and say I don't know what we have here, and but it's really interesting hearing the history that 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 you guys have with these creatures or animals. I'll say, and say it's So, could you tell us before I move on to your sighting, because it's really kind of I want to get onto it, but could you tell us about some of the sightings that you've had within the tribe?
I've I've collected over my time about 1,200 stories from enrolled members and from people that have worked within the reservation since my 28 years working on the reservation, and to learn um, the behaviors and the similarities that the experiences that I was having, that these people were helping me put together, compile all this evidence and showing movements. And there was one group that I followed that had about a 60 to 70 mile radius from the original sightings that they branched out to, and then moved. And the evidence that I collected and knowledge of that group, I could tell that they were telling the truth because of um, hair pattern or color or injuries that this group had. And so I was astounded as I would do my talks at conventions, conferences, and when people would come up to me at the end, and it was like, I know the one that you're talking about because I seen him, and they would tell me the story, and then I was like, yep, that's him. And so that's how I started building everything. And within the tribe itself, or in my group of folks in my family, it was never really talked about, and I still get warned not to talk about them, but to pass on and to educate um, the folks, like you inviting me to talk. I feel that why start? Why have somebody start all over again, like I had to? Why start all over when you've got somebody with the knowledge and is willing to share, but not go too far with that information as far as locations, but the questions of, What did it look like? How fast did it run? How tall was it? Were there more than one? Do they have babies? Do they, all these questions that just, as new people, as they get into this, have, and I pass that on just to help them educate and then steer them down the path that I once was going down, but now have turned and started going down a different path because of what I've seen and what they've taught me.
Yeah,
Wow.
and yeah, wow, that's really interesting. And at this point, Chris, do you have anything you want to jump in with?
Yeah, you said like literally 10% of your population has given you evidence with this. I mean, that's a massive number, really. 10% is
Yes.
And you refer to them the big people. So in your dealings, these are animals with no, wrong, not. This is a big person with the same sort of level of intelligence and communication and sort of belief system like us, or
yes.
How do they compare to us? Just a lot bigger.
Well, yeah. I mean, look at, I've always said this is that we have to go out and try to survive. If one were to get lost out there, we're out of our element. But that's how they've lived. They know the features. They know the land. They've been taught firsthand, like you are. Like say over in your area, your parents took you to different places, and you learned how to navigate to those places. So that's the same way that they learn as well. Is that as young ones, they're taken different areas, and they're shown these places, so they know where to hunt. They know where to get the water. They know, they know all this knowledge, medicines and everything, because it's all handed down to them, just like everything is handed down to us.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
I think it's blowing our minds here, Chris.
yeah. It might be the darkness outside, but no, this is quite incredible.
So Mel, before we move on to our next few questions, you've had 2 questions in chat. I'll bring this one up first.
Okay.
Someone's asked, how do you communicate with them?
Over here in our area, if we know our native language, people have been able to communicate in our language with them. But if you're going out on your own, and this is going to blow a lot of people's minds, is that all you have to do is, like, when you go over to somebody's house, what is the first thing that you do? You respect where you're going, because you've been invited to that place, and then you may bring a gift as a warming item to introduce yourself, and then you introduce yourself, and then that venture from there on, you have a good bond with that person, and then you keep that nice communication up. It's the same way that you do here too. When you go out, you introduce yourself. You could say it aloud, or you could just stand there and, like, you're praying, and just say, "My name's Mel Skahan. I thank you for inviting me into your home. I'm here to camp. I'm not here to do anything else." You build that bond. You make them trust you. They can hear your thoughts when you do this, and that's what I do every place that I go to, is that I project who I am, why I'm there, and then that level of communication is established, that respect is established, and I've never had a bad encounter with them, as you may hear from other people, of rock throwing, screaming, and all this trying to drive you out. I mean, when you meet up with somebody that you don't know, and they like, "Blah, blah, 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 you get out of here, and I don't want you ever to come back." People got to start thinking about their relationships that they have and how they approach one another. It's the exact same way when you go out to the woods. It's the same thing. Introduce yourself and be respectful.
Wow.
When you say you approach the woods like you're approaching somebody else's home, they actually understand your thoughts word for word, or they understand your intentions by your actions or your demeanor?
It could go either way. I mean,
All right. Okay.
if you're out in the woods and you're four-bying all over the land, making noise, making a ruckus, if somebody would come into your yard, what would you do? You would chase them off because this is
Mm.
this is my property. You guys are destroying my area. So,
Yeah.
like I said, when you've people have got to start putting themselves in this pattern of understanding that the relationships that you have in your world is the same type of relationship that you can establish out there by respecting and everything in an everyday world.
Mm. And I think that brings, and I think Chris, me and you will both be doing that now when we go out in the forest. I will say that it's you're relating it back to humans, which is an awesome thing to do, because it's like when I'm out and when it's always I then try and relate it to humans. I think a lot of Bigfoot activity and a lot of people relate it to human activity, which means it's kind of easier to let's say understand, and it's easier to kind of, from what you're saying, it's kind of things that we already know how to do, but and just be the same with with this out in the forest. Do you get what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yep. Exactly what I meant is, just go out there and be your true self out there.
Yeah, definitely. So I have a second question on here. Does the USA government know about these creatures, and why don't they make it official that they do exist?
Oh, I can't answer that. I don't know. I know that they exist, and I don't. At one point, I wanted the world. I wanted to prove it to the world to make the money. And then it just you get away from that once you learn about them, and then
Mm.
everything that you experience from, like I just said, the mind talking to them and understanding, and then having them come in and then do whatever they're doing. I've had so many visits by them, and I've been this close to them. I don't know if you can see it. There we go.
Mm.
I've been that close to them, and it's been like that multiple times. And did I see them? No. They were outside our tent. My wife and I, we camp a lot, and they come around, and she's the one that actually wakes me up and then lets me know by squeezing my arm gently, and then we'll see the shadow walk by, and then you'll hear them moving about, and then you'll hear them talking to each other. And one story that I have is that with we were going out camping, and it was to a new area. And my wife and I were living in separate areas. I was living in Yakima. She was over here in Seattle. So we met halfway. Uh, so I got there first, and it was pitch dark. I roll up to this lake, and I have an SUV, and I had all the windows down. And I'm sitting there in complete darkness. And off to my right hand side, I can hear something walking down the slope towards the road that I drove on. And then I'm sitting there listening, and then all of a sudden I can hear this, and then I hear another one go, and I'm laying there, and I'm like, because I had my seat back, and I'm like, what is going on here? And I can hear them walking down the hill, both of them, and then I can hear both of them talking back and forth to each other, and I could tell the two different voices. And as they're walking closer to me, I just hear this, and they're almost to the road. And then I'm listening to them, and then another car is approaching the lake. And so they divert from me, and they start walking over to where the entrance into this lake is, where the road is. And I can hear the car pulling up, and then I can hear them as they're walking away. And I'm like, wow, I've never heard them actually communicate with each other in this manner. And so I get out of my car, and I walk up to the road, and I start walking towards them. And as they're in front of me, and I'm back here, and they're and I'm walking behind them, and we're going towards that car. The car stops. Two guys get out of it, and they're talking about where they're going as on the opposite side of the lake where I'm at. And then I could hear these two started whispering to each other, and these two guys are like talking away, and they don't even know that they're being watched, and they don't even know I am there. And
Wow.
then and then it's like, well, we're going to go up this road, and then we're going to hang a left, and then we're going to wind up at the top of this ridge. That's the two guys talking. And then the doors close, the car takes off. And I'm like, wow, I've never, and I don't know of anybody that have heard this or experienced this before either. And then I was like, oh no, I'm like about 100 yards from my car, and I'm on the road, and they're up on the hillside. And then I hear them walking, and then I was like, oh, I got to get back to my car. So I start walking back to my car on the road, and I hear this snap, snap, boom, 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 crack, crack. And they're just talking away. And then you always hear the story of, I heard something over there, and then you're walking, then you stop, and then they stop, right? I'm sure you guys heard this before. And so they stopped, and I stopped, and it was quiet. And then they started walking again. And I'm walking faster to get back to my car. And then they stopped again. And then I had to stop. And then it was quiet. And then they started walking again. And then I started walking faster, and I made it to my car. And then I can hear, and I closed my door real quietly. And I'm like, my wife does not like Bigfoot encounters that happen so quick. I said, she's not even here, and we have something already going on. And so I just yelled out, and like I said, be respectful with them and let them know your intentions. And I said, all right, I know you guys are here. This is your area, and I will come back later. And then I told them bye. I told them who I was. I started my car up. I didn't even look up on the hillside as I drove by them. And then I got back into cell phone range, and then I called my wife, and I was like, we're going someplace else, and I'll tell you why when you meet up with me.
That's so cool.
That's an amazing story. Honestly, that's an incredible story.
Total role reversal that you stop when they stop.
Yeah.
Because normally the story is I heard someone, as soon as I stopped, it stopped too. But you got them. You got them.
Yeah.
But
wow.
What surprised me about that, I don't know why it surprised me, is they weren't aware you were there. They did miss that. And then the second vehicle turned up with the two men, and they didn't run off screaming into the forest.
No,
they were blasé, 100% confident in the knowledge that these guys ain't going to see them. However, they'd already messed up because you were stood right there.
I was still there. Yeah.
yeah. No, it's incredible.
Yeah, exactly.
That's mad. I've never heard a story like that, and I really enjoyed listening to that.
Yeah, I had no idea what to do. I don't even know why I followed them. I could have stayed at my car and waited for them to come back, but I'm glad I got out of my car and followed them. And like I said, like you said, it was a role reversal. I did what they did to me, to them. And then that's why I thought they were teenagers, and they were young at that time. And so they were just, still learning how to be stealthy with people. And these two were not stealthy. And eventually we had learned that there was an older one, a taller one, that was right around 12 foot tall, that came in with them on another group that I had sent out there. And so I think, like I said, from little ones, they're educated. And so, teenagers, they'll do whatever they want. But when you become an adult, then you've learned, you know better. And so the same patterns as us with kids, as us as infants, all the way to adulthood, you see with them.
And the big guy's 12 foot tall.
12 foot tall. He was actually spotted.
Gee.
Wow.
I'd like be literally looking in his jeans pocket if I stood up tall. I mean, he's double my height.
Yes. Yep. I've had witnesses explain to me that when I'm interviewing, they would say their legs are as tall as you are, and I'm 5'8".
Wow.
Yeah. Well, you've just been called a brave man, Mel.
I call them Shaggy and Scooby. Just the way they act. I mean, it's an American cartoon. I don't know if you guys know.
Yeah, Scooby-Doo,
yeah. So it sounded like Shaggy and Scooby talking to one another, so I named them Shaggy and Scooby.
It's got a big cult following here, and very famous for bringing home the truth that all the evil in the world committed by these monsters is actually humans. It's when they take the mask off, it's always a human.
Yes.
So I'm saying to everyone out there, we are going to take a very, very short break with an advert, and then we'll be back, and we'll finally get to Mel's sighting. I can't wait for it. We'll be back in about a minute, guys. All right.
For half an hour on Saturday afternoons and for quarter of an hour on Wednesday evenings, the world's only show about hard science, weird shit and surreality. And it's co-presented by an anthropomorphic chicken. Be there or be square.
Very, very odd advert. I'll say very, very odd advert.
That's our friend Jonathan. He's an incredible researcher and typical little bit of British lunacy in there.
Yeah. So you've had one more question. Have you ever been back to that place?
Yes, I have. I've been back there 4 times, and vocalizations and a visit by them. Not a visual sighting. They like to come in when people. I mean, you catch them off guard. You catch them out in the open accidentally, but they're more comfortable moving around at night, and that way they have cover. Every being needs cover when they're out in the woods, and so just like them, I've always told people that when you go camping, when I go camping, I always look for the signs that they're there. And I don't know if anybody's ever talked to you guys about tree breaks before, but the markers that they leave are the telltale signs of their movement in that area. If you're camping in a spot, you get out, walk around that camp. If you see the tree breaks, then you know that they know about this spot because people come back all the time, different people, and camp in that spot. So they mark all the human activity repeated human activity areas, whether it be a campground, a road, a parking lot, a bathroom. They'll mark that way. When they're walking or approaching, they know once they get to that spot where that tree break is, that hey, I can stay here and I can do this and look around, and if I want to approach when they're out, and I always do this when they come around, is that I keep on snoring, because that's when they come around, is when you're asleep. So like if Daniel, you're sleeping in your room and I'm gonna sneak up on you and I hear you go, and I know, Daniel, you don't snore, right? And but I go off that breathing, and then I can approach you. And we've noticed that they'll take one step and they'll wait 15 minutes, and then they'll take another step. That's how much time that they have, and this is how they've learned to be very quiet. and they'll come in, and then the reason that they mess up is because you see the shadow or whatever during the ambient light, the full moon or partial moon or whatever is out there, and then you can see them, and then you'll hear the steps that they make, and sometimes they'll be very quiet, or sometimes they'll run around, and we've had them stay around us because I'm laying there going, and then we can just watch them move back and forth around us, all the way around us, and we can hear them playing. And I'm just laying there and going, and so they know inside the tent that, oh, he's still asleep, and then keep moving.
Yeah, you definitely need an audio of that. put it on repeat, and then sit there with your
because it gets kind of dry after a while, and then so that's tip number 2 for you guys. Keep snoring on the inside when you do have something coming around.
Wow. Well, I'll say very, very briefly before we move on. So this is from Teresa. So yeah, we broadcast every Sunday. It's not always live. We release an episode every Sunday. It's always on YouTube at 1 o'clock, and we're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Today's live is a very, very special one. So we do some lives quite a few times. So yeah, that's the answer to that. So right, I want to get into it now. There's more questions, but I'm just gonna get straight into it. So Mel, I got into this by watching Expedition Bigfoot. A lot of people got into it by having a sighting or reading a book. I literally watched it by passing a room, and it happened to be on, so I sat there, and it happened to be the episode that you were in. So you were the first episode that I ever watched. I ever knew about Bigfoot, and that was about 2 years ago. And I've been waiting 2 years to interview you, and I was very excited when you replied. So I want to kind of go straight into. Could you tell us about your whole sighting that you documented on Expedition Bigfoot?
It was a 2-day event, and I'll try to make this fast. It was a 2-day event. I was with a coworker, and we had to do some pre-work on this area that we had to go down into. It was a hillside that was about 70%, which meant it was about like that steep. And my job as a timber cruiser and evaluator, I was to go down to this one spot, measure the timber in that area. When we were scouting the area, we were driving in a Ford pickup. So there was 2 of us in there. I was driving, and this was right around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And my passenger, he had Bigfoot sightings, and he told me many stories because he was a forestry worker too. And he talked about running from them, about watching them play and watching them doing all kinds of other things while he worked. And so we're driving down this road, and we're almost to the end. And then he says, "Hey, there was something back there." And I asked him what it was, and he was stuttering. And I was like, "Well, okay, well, let's go back up and find out what it was." So as I put the truck in reverse, we're backing up, and then I'm looking back to my left and back to my right to make sure I don't run into anything. And then as we're in reverse, and I look back to the left like that, and then he goes, "There it goes." And this area it had been pre-commercially thinned. A lot of the trees had been removed, so it was fairly open. And when he said, "There it goes," then I turned to my right because he was on the right-hand side. What I saw had already dropped its arm because it was standing by a tree, and it had its arm fully extended out, leaning up against that tree. and he was black in color, and he was the most muscular thing I had ever seen. And after we got his height, he was about 8.5 feet tall. And so he turned to his left and he took 2 steps, and then he started running away from us. And then as he was running away, you could see the shoulder movement as he was going. And then he turned to the right, and then I could see his arm movement as he was going to the right. And then I jumped on top of the truck so I could continue to watch it as it was running away. And then eventually he was out of sight. A lot of people say he disappeared. What do you mean he disappeared? I was like, so I've changed my wording about this. So he ran out of our view, so we couldn't see him anymore. I always carried a camera in my vest, and then I got in the back of the cab, and then I pulled out my vest and I started going after it. And I had my camera out and it started going, and then saw where it had left, where he was out of view. So I do a lot of hunting, and so I went back to the original spot and saw where he had been standing. And my partner was like, "You're crazy, you shouldn't." And it was like, I started taking measurements and couldn't get an actual foot size, but it was right around 16 to 17 inches in length, because it was down woody debris. So there were no toe prints or anything but where he was standing. And so as he started his movement, I measured the stride at 2 feet. And then when he turned away from us, it started out at 5 feet, and then 7 feet, and then 9 feet. On his run, he was doing about 9 to 10 feet on one left foot, right foot. And that's how fast he was running from us at that stride. And so I put sticks in the ground, tracking his movement, and then eventually where he had gone over the hillside from where when he got out of our view. So we sat there and waited for sounds or anything else like that. So we just called it a day. The next day we went in there. We went down that hillside where it had gone, because that was our work area. And we got to this talus slope, a rocky slope, and my partner was like, "Man, I don't want to walk all the way back up there. Let's see if somebody can pick us at the bottom." So he's on the radio, and he hands the radio to me, and then he picks up a good sized soccer ball sized rock, and he throws it off the hill, and then we could see it bouncing down, and then bouncing off trees. And then as I was watching it, I said, "Hey, there's something down there." And then he picked up another one, and then he rolled it down. It rolled down the hill again. And then I'm watching it, and I was like, "Hey, there's something down there," because what I saw went like this behind a tree. And I said, "I'm going to go take a look at that." So I started walking down there, and when I got to the point, I saw the impression in the ground, and then it took off down the hill. And when I saw the first footprint that hit the ground, it slid 10 feet. So the foot hit, and then it slid in the dirt, and then the next foot hit, and then it slid in the dirt as it's running down the hill. And then I followed it further, and then it hooked to the left, and then I was like, "Well, it's out of here." Well, I'm going up and I'm measuring everything, and I look up, and my partner's up there, and I'm walking back up towards him, and next thing you know, I see him running. And then I saw this rock rolling down the hill, and then he catches up to me out of breath, and he goes, "Did you hear that?" And I was like, "No, I didn't hear anything." He goes, "You didn't hear it?" I go, "What was it?" He goes, "Threw a rock at me." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, I heard this, ah, ah." And then I looked up the hill, and then I saw this rock being thrown at me, and it landed about 5 to 7 feet to his left. And he goes, that's when I started running. He goes, "I didn't kick that rock loose. It was thrown at me." And So we went through our work day, and we get out there. It's about 7, 8 o'clock at night, and it's dark. And he goes, "Why did it throw a rock at me?" He goes, "You've told me stories that these things are they don't hurt people." And I told him, I said, "You rolled 2 rocks down the hill. It thought you were throwing rocks at it, so it didn't throw anything at me. It circled back above you and then shouted out at you, 'Throw a rock at me, I'm going to throw it at you.'" And so there's my sighting in 2-day events, and it was the same one.
Wow, that's mad. That's honestly mad.
And educational too, but Bigfoot telling us you reap what you sow.
Right. I had asked him, I said, "Are you going to ever roll rocks down the hill anymore?" And he says, no. He says, never again.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's amazing. And I think the stories and the history that you guys have over in America is incredible. It's hearing about it is amazing. And I think Chris would agree with me on that, right, mate?
More than likely, yeah. I'm just in awe of some of the figures at a 10-foot pace when it's at a run. I mean, that's an incredible distance it can cover, you know, and like you say, be out of sight. Like you say, people like go for their camera, look up, and it's gone. And like you say, it disappeared. No, it was doing 35 mile an hour in a forest.
Exactly. Yeah,
it didn't vaporize.
And I've had stories from coworkers that on their own time out in the woods that said that they were chased by him. And like you said, Chris, 35, 37 miles an hour is what he was doing, and it was right behind him.
Wow. Wow.
Yes. Yeah, you weren't getting chased. You might have been getting chased out, but you weren't getting chased because it's going to catch you.
Right. Yeah, you're never going to outrun them. You're never going to outsmart them either, because there's always usually more than one in the area.
Yeah, definitely. So Mel, myself and Chris, it's been a pleasure to interview you. And say so. I've got one more question for you, unless Chris wants to jump in with another one now.
Yeah, I feel like we're like 10% into this, and you got to come back and carry on with the story sometime. We got to go into this deeper.
I'd be happy to come back.
So very quickly, so this is Teresa, a new viewer for our podcast, and so I'm happy here in the UK and not going to meet a Bigfoot here in the UK.
It takes some reading, that one.
Yeah, it takes a while to realize that, you know, sometimes you'll run into a young one that's maybe 1.5 feet, 2 feet tall, to something that's up to 12 feet tall, you know.
Yeah.
So it takes.
It's crazy, Mel, that when you said that print size, I just messaged Chris and went, we've done our own research here in the UK, and as kind of things go on, you'll learn more and more about kind of what we've done. But very recently, 2 weeks ago, I found a 16-inch print, the same size as that you just said, and I went, oh, that's mad. So
the biggest one that I ever found was 22 inches in length.
22 inches.
Yeah.
Oh God. Oh, there's no way that I'm sleep tonight now.
No, me neither. I'm just going to go and send an email to my boss. I'm not coming in tomorrow. I'm going to be out with Mel on night.
So Mel, and obviously after the interview, I would love to kind of have a bit more of a catch up. But my last question for you here on live is what are the other things you plan to do in the Bigfoot community from now?
Well, just, you know, like I said earlier, I want to help people with their questions and then steer them in the right way. Because if you're going to go out there to try to prove them to the world, that's not going to happen. You've got to go out there for yourself. You want to learn everything about them and educating yourself in every event that you've had out there. And just by talking to me that I've had lots of years of experience with them. I had the best job in the world at working in the forest for 30, 35, 38 years. And so I would never choose another profession. If I were to do this all over again, I would want to go back to do this again. And I think that's what set me apart from a lot of folks that go out there and do the research now, is that they weren't out there every day to be able to navigate, to be able to be around them, to be able to focus your intentions to them, to let them follow you around. And while I was at work, they did follow us. I went through so many coworkers that thought I was using them for bait, and so I would not. I think that's what all my experience came from, was all my years every day in the woods. I mean, I was out there every day.
Wow. You know when something's different in the woods today, because it's your environment that you're in the woods more than you're at home, and so you know when there's something different today from yesterday or any other day.
Yeah. And then, as I said earlier, when I go out, you look for the signs that they know the spot. And that's what I've learned about them over the years, is that the smallest, I mean, you could find a little tiny campfire that's about 30, 40 years old, and they've marked that area as a human activity area.
Yeah.
Wow. That's just mad.
Wow.
And say it's been an incredible interview,
yes.
And I think myself and Chris will be planning part 2 very soon.
Okay. Well, thank you again for reaching out, and I'm glad I'm able to share with you. And like I said, I'm happy to come back and talk to both of you and your audience.
Definitely, yeah, amazing. Say if you stay on after the interview, I would love to just have a bit of a chat after I finish the interview. So I want to say thank you to all our viewers and everyone who watches this on record. I can definitely say everyone watching now is all from America, unless we have anyone from the UK still up. We have one person from the UK that is watching. But anyone who's watching this on record, please don't forget to share this episode. It's been amazing. And I want to say thank you so much to our guest, Mel Skahan. I said that right, didn't I?
Twice. 2 times in a row, yes.
And Chris, I think you'll agree with me on, mate. This has been an amazing interview.
Absolutely, yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you to all our audience. Keep searching, stay mythical, share everything. We will see you very, very soon. Thank you and good night.
Thank you for listening to the Mythical Legends podcast. For more information, check out our Facebook group. The truth is out there.
That's an amazing